I've used the Pomodoro technique for a long time, and I've realized that in most cases it's useless. Many times, neither the focus time nor the break time is enough. Other times, it's too much, and in some cases, the break alarm goes off when you haven't even managed to start the activity. These are some common problems, and the solution is very simple. It all starts with understanding how the Pomodoro technique works and why it's so recommended. The technique consists of setting a focus time during which you will carry out an activity and a shorter break time, which is usually accompanied by a reward. We'll call the combination of these two times a Pomodoro. You'll do 3 Pomodoros, and on the 4th Pomodoro, you'll extend the break time, then repeat these 4 Pomodoros until the activity is completed. Advantage 1, flexibility. That the break time is shorter than the focus time is the only strict rule, but you can set both times to whatever works best for you. Some common intervals are 15, 5, 20, 10, 120, 225. If you're a beginner, most recommend starting with small intervals. Advantage 2, small intervals break friction. Friction is those things that prevent us from starting and or doing an activity. Long durations, the difficulty of the activity, or lack of clarity on what to do are common causes. By setting a short interval, we ignore the existing friction because regardless of the cause of the friction, we'll do it for a very short time, which helps us begin the activity. Advantage 3, a reward almost always generates motivation. Knowing that you'll get a reward after the focus period makes you want that moment to arrive. This will motivate you to go through that focus time and do your best to earn the reward, which consists of a break and a prize or award. As you progress with the technique, you'll notice that the length of the intervals increases. The reason isn't that you've improved, but how focus capacity and the reward work, the two key ideas the technique applies poorly. The first error of the reward is the prize. The problem with it is that you'll end up getting used to it regardless of what you choose. So it will stop motivating you to receive it, and it could be a distraction from the activity you're doing during the focus time. Using social media is one example. If you're not careful, it can make you forget completely to continue the activity, and you might spend hours enjoying the reward. The second error of the reward is the length of the break. Taking a break is actually necessary, but depending on the activity, the required break time varies. Even doing the same activity, you may need more or less rest. The last error of the reward is motivation. Relying on motivation is something you should always avoid when the activity to be done is something long-term, since motivation that depends on an external factor is very short-lived, and if its source is a reward, it becomes repetitive and loses its value quickly. On the other hand, if the motivation is intrinsic, like a feeling, it's a resource that is only present at the beginning, so in both cases you'll run out of it soon. The handling of focus capacity is the next error. As I mentioned earlier, we end up increasing the interval times intuitively, and one of the causes is the second error of the reward, but the main cause is how our focus capacity actually works. There is a necessary amount of time and specific conditions to reach our maximum focus. Once reached, you'll stay in that state for a while, and then it will start to decline, losing your focus and therefore performance in the activity. Each described stage is variable and depends mainly, but not only, on the activity you're doing. The time it takes to reach the maximum will change, the time you stay at the maximum will change, and the time it takes to lose focus will change. So the problem again is setting a fixed time, which is nearly impossible when each activity needs to be managed in different ways. That's why you end up increasing focus time intuitively to give yourself enough time to reach the maximum level before you have to take a break. It could even be that the increase is due to the time being insufficient just to start the activity. Relying on your perception to determine how long you'll do an activity and when to take a break is the most viable option, since your focus capacity is affected by many factors. To achieve this, it will be necessary for you to become more aware of detecting what focus state you're in while doing an activity. If you're not yet at the maximum, or if you already are, continue. When you notice that you're starting to lose focus, take a break. That way you'll avoid taking a break at an inconvenient moment. Break time also varies, as I mentioned in problem 2 of error 1, and what you do during it is also important. In the break after exercising a muscle, it makes sense not to move that muscle. The same applies to any other activity. If during your break you do something that involves equal or similar effort, then it won't be effective. That's why I recommend not looking at social media, which, in addition to being a strong distraction, prevents adequate rest. Things like drinking water, walking and stretching, or even meditating a bit are common rest recommendations for mentally demanding activities, but you can have any other activity you wish as long as it provides real rest without distractions. The time will depend on you. Also, remember to avoid any type of award so as not to rely on it as a source of motivation, or on motivation itself. You have to know how and with what to use it, but the technique is not useless. My recommendation is to use it only for activities that require little effort, whether physical, mental, or both, and where the steps to follow for that activity are very simple and require little attention. Another possible use is for occasional activities, things you have to do only once or very few times a month or year. So the technique isn't useless, but if you want something long-term, it's better to use an approach that depends on your perception to define how long you'll stay focused and how long you'll rest, without relying on prizes to motivate you or on motivation itself to do the activity. But how can I not depend on motivation? What are the necessary conditions, and how do I create them to reach maximum focus? How is multitasking related to all of this, and what about the flow state? These are questions that require deeper exploration, which I'd like to explore in depth in my newsletter on Substack. That content will be available soon for free. If you'd like to take a look, I'll leave the link in the description. I'd also love to read your thoughts in the comments. Thank you very much for watching.